Hey folks, how's it going? I'm ObscureNameDigit, and today we have a review by Vinny Fanneran of State of Decay 2. Sod giveth, sod taketh away. With one of their dice rolls out of the way for this year, Microsoft released the second most anticipated game in their 2018 exclusive lineup. State of Decay 2 is a sequel of sorts to the outrageously popular State of Decay, a game that rocked Xbox Live Arcade late in the 360's life cycle and breathed new life into the aging superstar. This time around, SOD 2 is tasked with breathing any life into the Xbox One, whilst simultaneously helping to shift Xbox Game Pass subscriptions. What we are left with is an above average game in a buggy state. When lined up with its predecessor in their respective years of release, SOD 2 just doesn't capture the imagination in the same way, but it's still worth playing. Alright, you guessed right. There are zombies again. Natch. The story aspect of State of Decay has been pared back from the original in favour of what Undead call a dynamic story system. This is just fancy talk for missions are tied to certain random characters, and some will affect the game more than others. Players will still need to play politics with neighbouring factions, trading and co-oping objectives, or fighting and using their turf as an outpost. The acquisition of stragglers is mainly the same. Do one of a thankfully decent set of short side missions. The common event of aiding a loose survivor in resurrecting their own base before immediately taking them into your own is somewhat funny, but eventually the pointlessness of that particular scenario gets annoying. State of Decay 2 is not as engaging in narrative as the first game. First time around, certain events were destined to take place when you fulfilled an objective, classic story stuff. These eventually revealed a scary truth that undermined the player's struggle and destroying all hope. This time around, we are treated to far less soulful personal goals, which aren't nearly as interesting as the game likes to think. Players will have to ride the roller coaster of getting a cop car, clearing out a house and listening to an architectural eulogy from a wholly interchangeable set of polys and shaders, and taking down a number of uninspiring plague hearts. State of Decay 2 is a depressing look at how difficult it would be to last a few weeks in a post-apocalyptic zombie wasteland. Complicating matters more than the survival is having to do so while sheltering idiots, burdens, petty criminals, and whingers. And yeah, I can see the irony of me criticising others for any and all of those. Players pick a base at the end of a reasonably thrilling cutscene and tutorial sequence. They then make their way to their new home with their new friends and begin the churlish process of setting up a viable base. The tutorial doesn't really end till players have set their housemates to installing the centre of one of many changes to the series. Infirmaries. They're no longer optional. Each character has a blood plague, and the infirmary is the only place to stabilise or develop a medicine to treat the plague temporarily. Survivors now have an injury system. Each injury counts as a separate issue, and the infirmary can only treat a finite number of injuries at any one time. On top of that, players can now add mods to each facility to buff certain aspects of the facility or the house at large. Stuff like more storage space or increased morale are worth holding out for, so don't install the first ones you find. Bases are still limited to how many slots they have, but they now come with some repairs before you can move in properly. Okay, we still got a few glitches, but a little bit less so. The presence of a bug or 100 in the first State of Decay was somewhat forgivable given the indie nature of its development. SOD 2 is only slightly less broken. There are no game breakers peppered throughout, but rather a scatter of nuisances. The HUD definitely disappeared more than once. Zombies ended up trapped in rocks or beneath the ground, preventing me from clearing an area. Cars flipped and barrel rolled at 3 km an hour. I was stuck halfway through a walking animation and floating motionless at walking speed until a zombie smacked me back to life. So there is a lack of polish that permeates the experience, and the cruel autosave feature only magnifies any bug related injustices. It's hard to forgive it all that easily. State of Decay 2 makes a great decision to split its expanded map into 3 areas. While it might have been nice to ramble around all 3 at once, players get 3 fairly unique, ample and detailed worlds to start in. Each map feels like different parts of the same area, as if each playthrough shunts you just a few miles away. So, although the map descriptions are a bit vague and don't really offer anything to make players think too hard about their choice, this was a wise decision as it keeps the opening's swift pace up. Undead Labs deserve praise for setting the scene well and then allowing players to enter a gameplay cycle that has mostly improved upon the feeling of constant logistical danger seen in State of Decay. The attention to detail seen around State of Decay 2 is laudable. Most of the details, however, are uninteractive and the world can feel a bit lifeless, despite the living dead. The game overall is decent looking considering its price and genre, but the Unreal Engine 4 has looked better. The PC specs seemed mind-bogglingly high when they were announced, and playing the game on Ultra hasn't changed my mind. It seems they aim for performance over wow factor. On Ultra, a Radeon 390X will hold a solid 60 plus FPS, but with some horrendous judder. SOD 2 might be badly optimised for Radeon GPUs, but for any Nvidia users out there, you should suffer a little less frame drops and stutter. That said, I was running the game on a 1080 Ti and I felt I should have had a little more than 70 plus FPS. Hopefully the performance will improve on all GPUs with a quick patch. On Xbox One X, the game looks about as good as the PC on Ultra. It does suffer from the same occasional frame rate drops and fan noise bordering on protest. Character traits now play a far greater role in managing your lineup and cohabitants. Gone are the superfluous fan of SCART cables and loves green, replaced with meteor characteristics. This writer had a kleptomaniac bum everyone out, as if their possessions meant more to them than their lives. I saw certain people respond differently to others, as if they had different sensibilities. This aspect adds many more complications than one would expect, but it all adds a nice variable to the base management system. With that in mind, players will find that there are many more skills to learn, and some are much easier to acquire. Each skill tree now comes with specific buffs and multipliers to lend some depth to the tree. Most of the time, I've found myself more willing to bring complete duffers out for an expedition in State of Decay 2. The years of progression and the willingness of the devs to make almost everything a trainable skill means it's worthwhile to get everyone trained up in searching and melee. The game also feels a little easier. Aside from stamina management, there isn't much to stop a complete lamb from taking on the underwhelming boss creatures. Here we have case in point. Juggernauts, they hit hard but they're laughably easy to dodge, or just hit them with a car twice. Players will only lose their dudes to carelessness or sheer ambivalence at losing a mouth to feed. Biggest change is the addition of 4-player co-op to the series. Players can now radio for help or to offer help. The other players participate in your current game or vice versa. It would have been nice now to have a true co-op mode where players can start a game together and have a more equal footing in the game. As it stands though, player 2, 3 and 4 will just be less obedient but more effective versions of the AI that don't have random missions every once in a while. Unless you consider getting them to stay in your game to be a mission. There is no incentive to help others bar leveling up, and the risk of permanently losing a character far outweighs this. From the very beginning, the shifts in style are visible. State of Decay 2 is very much intended to be a multiplayer game. Having a random selection of predefined starting characters instead of a man, like Marcus, probably helps stop the possibility of seeing 4 Marcus 2.0s floating around a co-op game. This has the side effect of making it harder to give a solitary poo about your starters. Even if you get similar starters in back-to-back games, it's hard to feel anything when Perennial Exhausted White Man or Dr. Nerdy Black Woman perish. You never really get to know anybody's names. Another odd quirk is how utterly useless your crew is. In State of Decay, players could ask their otherwise burdensome AI compadres to collect some gear, or stop you being munched on by a high zombie. It was risky to send them alone, but that danger meant something. This time around you have to do it yourself or have a trusted real-life friend help. So sometimes your AI housemates earn their keep by bringing home spectacularly useless SH1T. I assume they are good to sell as influence, but at 10 to 30 influence a pop they might as well just stay at home. Some of the facilities are similarly nerfed. The car park spaces are now mainly just a means to turn your car into a gaudy tank hybrid. It doesn't fit the tone of the game and is something that Frank West, he'd probably be a little bit more comfortable in. Some of the design choices and changes feel like the game is pushing a player to go online. The absolute ineptitude of the AI companions is not a new feature. Stripping out what utility they had just seems cruel. State of Decay 2 fails to make its multiplayer aspect worth what it has lost in the transition. It isn't easy to care for the random characters, and the lost AI features are grating for those hoping to play solo after the apocalypse. The shift in focus from a storied progression to a more open-ended survival adventure is also double-edged. Saving the world this time is a more rounded challenge, with greater base building and resource management. But the lack of a real story to work through will take a lot of interest out of the game for many players in the long term. Now for a little technical detail. The game is out on Windows 10 and Xbox One, and it was actually sampled on an Xbox One X. It will, as far as the fact showed, be released on Steam at some stage. Right now it's £24.99 or €29.99. The publisher is Microsoft, developer Undead Labs, and the release date is going to be the 22nd of the 5th, 2018, and it's PEGI 18. Also, quick note, it is Play Anywhere, so you can actually play it on PC and Xbox with one digital copy. That is it for this review. Folks, thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Don't forget to hit like if you like this video for more news, reviews and playthroughs. Also, let us know what you like or dislike most about State of Decay 2 in the comment section below. And remember, subscribing here and hitting the bell notification is the best way to keep up to date with us, and we really appreciate it. Thanks. I'm ObscureNameDigit, and I'll see you around.